Picture being stuck in a house where every word uttered, every action made, is being turned against you. A secret fortune is quietly being transferred into hidden bank accounts. A nanny is being paid more than anyone ever dreamed, and the truth about the Browns family dynasty is soon to blow up in court. What begins as a tale of cash soon turns into one of manipulation, betrayal, and a family torn apart like never before. Stick with me, because after reading this, you won't even believe how deep the lies went. Before we get started, like this video and subscribe. The secrets you're about to learn will blow your mind. The Browns narrative was always marketed as one of a big, happy family, making their way through life. But when the cameras weren't rolling, the truth was much bleaker. Kody Brown, the patriarch, came across as a man with many burdens to bear for many homes, but the cracks in his narrative began appearing long before the courtroom saga. At its core was Robyn, the constant sister wife, who performed the role of peacemaker and caretaker while quietly constructing her own sheltered world. But the first bombshell didn't come from Kody or Robyn, it came from someone no one expected. Mindy Jessup, Robyn's niece and the family's nanny. For years, she had been invisible, a quiet presence in the Shira Chateau, doing her job while witnessing everything the cameras didn't catch. Mindy wasn't just a caretaker, she was an insider who knew the secrets, the hidden financial moves, and the emotional games played behind closed doors. The suit that exposed these facts was brought by Christine and Janelle Brown, alleging that Kody and Robyn had engaged in a system of financial deception, draining money from the family business, Family Traditions LLC, into hidden personal accounts. Janelle and Christine were made to think for years that the family's finances were collapsing, had to make sacrifices, and live in hardship, all while Robyn enjoyed a lifestyle fueled by these secret funds. Right from the beginning of the trial, there was tension in the courtroom. Kody was called first to testify, and he performed like an actor. He portrayed himself as the scapegoat leader, the victim of ungrateful wives who were unable to respect his authority. But beneath the mask of self-pity and pretended truth, fissures started to appear. Robyn trailed behind, tears streaming, holding tissues, insisting she was only attempting to be a good sister wife, unaware of anything wrong. Her tale was perfectly scripted, a tender minuet of innocence and grief. And then came the time that would change everything. Mindy Jessup was summoned to the stand. The courtroom air changed in an instant. Kody's face drew tight. Robyn's tearful show for the first time seemed tinged with fear rather than with sadness. Mindy, wearing nothing more elaborate than a simple blouse and slacks, quiet but determined, entered the room. She was prepared to disclose what she had witnessed and heard, the truth that would untangle the Browns' well-crafted facade. She laid out her work. Long hours, on-call status, and a salary that was anything but modest. Mindy's payments were the result of a mysterious source, K&R Holdings, LLC. Unlike the checks Janelle and Christine had access to, this account was privately owned, channeled with family funds while the other wives were made to believe the household was on the verge of financial ruin. Each deposit, each statement, each subtle manipulation was proof of calculated deception. Mindy's testimony started stripping away the layers of manipulation. She spoke of eavesdropping on Kody and Robyn talking about the other wives, employing financial control and emotional manipulation to get their way. Robyn wasn't an innocent bystander. She was an accomplice, advising Kody, condoning his behavior and weaponizing concern. The courtroom heard as the story transitioned from money to motive, laying bare the psychological games that had divided the Browns for decades. You may believe this is merely a tale of secret cash, but what Mindy discovered is a template of deceit that shook the very foundations of the Brown family. The proof she revealed wasn't theoretical, it was tangible, written, and inescapable. All her overheard conversations, every financial transaction she saw, and every manipulative act she recounted started creating a narrative of an empire of family forged upon secrecy, control, and cunning cruelty. And yet, in the midst of it all, the defense attempted to disqualify her, portraying her as an angry ex-employee, biased and unreliable. But Mindy remained firm, unshakable, set on uncovering the truth. Testimony ended the first day with the courtroom charged with excitement. For the audience, it was only the beginning of the tale. The financial deceit had been exposed, but the emotional manipulation, the hypocrisy, and the extent of betrayal were still to be exposed. Stay with me, because next week, the tale gets darker still, revealing a degree of control that extends far beyond money and strikes at the core of the Brown family. Last Monday morning, the trial resumed, the air in the courtroom heavy enough to be sliced with a knife. Kody and Robyn were wearing down, their early confidence at the beginning of the trial now totally lost. Day one had unveiled the financial secrets, but the biggest bombshells were yet to explode. Christine and Janelle's attorney, Anna Chararma, was poised to deal with the most scandalous chapter in the Brown family drama, the fabled COVID-19 policies that had shattered the family on television. Kody had been the strict patriarch imposing draconian rules in the name of his family's safety. No guests, no travel, sterile sanitizing. This was a tale of sacrifice and duty. But Mindy Jessup, back on the stand once more, stripped away the fiction. These restrictions weren't about safety. They were about control. Mindy explained a list on the fridge, outlining the so-called rules. No one could come inside the house unless necessary. Groceries needed to be disinfected. Mail needed to remain outside. And anyone violating even one rule would be deprived of Kody's company and excluded from visiting Robyn's house. At face value, it sounded outrageous. But what Mindy revealed next revealed a stunning hypocrisy. While Kody enforced these rules on Janelle, Christine, and their children, Robyn's family and close friends freely entered the home. They weren't masked, they weren't socially distanced, and they shared meals and played together like any normal household. Kody and Robyn had created a closed circle, a selective loyalty test disguised as pandemic precautions. The very children Kody claimed he was protecting were the ones kept at a distance, while Robyn's inner circle enjoyed unrestricted access. Mindy's testimony uncovered the deliberate manipulation. She remembered discussions in which Robyn had told Kody that their vetted guests could be trusted, presenting it as safety, but enforcing a system of loyalty. "We find our people," Robyn had intoned, revealing the reality. These regulations were never about health, they were about power. Kody's so-called sacrifice was a conscious tool used to distance the other wives and to place control over the family. The courtroom heard as Mindy created a stark image of favoritism, duplicity, and deliberate cruelty. Kody's actions were not random or misdirected, they were purposeful. Robyn was no innocent bystander. She was an active participant in creating the story, condoning his choices, and reinforcing Janelle's and Christine's isolation. The children, the very individuals who were supposed to be the center of protection, were used as pieces in a power-grabbing maneuver designed to defend their nest egg. When the defense tried to play down such disclosures, implying that Mindy did not know the precautions of Robyn's visitors, she replied with accuracy. She had seen it for herself. Robyn's family were not being secluded. They were going to public-facing work, traveling by RVs, and freely mixing. The rules were selectively enforced, and the pattern could not be avoided. At the end of the session, the jury had seen it all so clearly, a skillfully coordinated scam in which Kody and Robyn operated money, kids, and story to their own advantage. Mindy's testimony was not only proof, it was a map to the truth of years of dishonesty. This session confirmed the Brown family's dysfunction wasn't an accident, it was calculated. The emotional manipulation, the selective application of rules, and the hypocrisy were now exposed, and the courtroom sensed the change. The story had shifted, the mask was removed, and the audience was left questioning how far had this betrayal extended, and what more would be revealed as the trial went on. As the trial continued, attention turned from the COVID-19 hypocrisy to the individual cost to Christine, Janelle, and their children. Mindy Jessup's testimony now transitioned from revealing deception to the emotional and psychological manipulation that was going on behind closed doors for years. She testified about conversations she overheard between Kody and Robyn, including talk of limiting Janelle's access to her own children and diminishing Christine's autonomy. Kody's words were telling. He called his power a crown, depicting himself as the sole decider of the family's destiny. Robyn wasn't merely acquiescing. She was actually aware, urging the wielding of economic and emotional leverage in order to maintain the other wives in their places. "You have to make them earn their time with you," she had advised him, sanctioning the manipulation. Mindy explained how this wasn't limited to the one incident. Anytime Janelle asked about money or attempted to be independent, Kody would crack down on rules, holding money over people's heads. Robyn presented it as for the family unit, but the result was evident: control, domination, and alienation of anyone who dared to cross them. Even mundane interactions were used as weapons. Gifts, gestures, and apparently harmless acts belonged to an artfully conceived scheme in order to preserve the image of a benevolent patriarch and an idyllic family. The psychological impact of these disclosures was heightened by the discrepancy between outward appearances and inner realities. As cameras documented tears and acts of concern, inside the house, Kody and Robyn functioned with deliberate coldness, running the household on their own terms and in disregard of the actual needs of their remaining wives and offspring. Mindy's first-hand testimony brought to light the extent of betrayal, the fiscal deception merely the tip. The actual harm was psychological. The courtroom held its collective breath as Mindy spoke of the children, how their birthdays, milestones, and medical needs were manipulated to support Kody's power and Robyn's complicity. When a child was in need of help, it was called manipulation. When Robyn's inner circle came over freely, it was called safety. The jury started noticing a pattern. The Brown system had been structured to favor a select few, while excluding the rest, all in the name of care and responsibility. Defense cross-examination tried to present Mindy as prejudiced, claiming she had personal allegiances and may embellish facts. But her answers were firm, controlled, and supported by tangible examples. She didn't guess. She related things she witnessed and overheard. Every point reaffirmed the pattern of intentional emotional manipulation. At the end of this session, the jury had a clear understanding. The Brown family's dysfunction was not just financial mismanagement or miscommunication. There was orchestrating involved. Mindy's testimony tied the financial and emotional threads together, revealing how money, rules, and relationships were all part of one strategy to isolate, control, and manipulate the other wives and children. The courtroom now knew what was at stake. This wasn't only a matter of dollars. It was a pattern of control, brought to fruition over years. And now that the evidence had been exposed, the story had permanently changed. Kody and Robyn were no longer just characters on a reality TV series. They were the masters of a brutally manipulative home, and the jury could see it in unflinching detail. With the trial progressing into its fourth session, the attention finally shifted to the COVID-19 rules and the hypocrisy in Kody and Robyn's rigid rules. Mindy Jessup took the stand again, calm but firm, prepared to testify on what actually occurred within the Flagstaff home as the world saw a tightly edited version on TV. The pandemic rules of the home were defined by Mindy. No visitors, constant sanitizing, social distancing, and absolute restrictions on travel. In front of the cameras, Kody came across as a responsible patriarch, shielding his family from a worldwide pandemic threat. But behind closed doors, things were very different. Robyn's own family and close friends were permitted inside, unmasked, mingling freely with the children. Kody's own sons from Christine and Janelle were prohibited from visiting, frequently missing milestones, surgeries, and holidays, all in the name of safety. She remembers overhearing discussions in which Robyn rationalized this double standard. "We can trust our people," she remembers Robyn saying, which meant that proximity and loyalty counted more than health. The rules were selectively applied, drawing a clear dichotomy. Approved insiders were let in, while other family members were kept out. The pandemic was hijacked, not for safety, but as a means of control. Mindy explained how Kody enforced these rules with anger and authority, making certain that access to him and Robyn was gained through compliance. Robyn's position wasn't passive. She actively taught him how to justify the restrictions, presenting them as care while reinforcing dominance. It was a pattern: emotional manipulation, selective enforcement, and calculated cruelty disguised as protection. Under cross-examination, the defense attempted to imply that Mindy couldn't possibly know Robyn's guest precautions, and that she was perhaps misreading what happened. Mindy pushed back quietly, noting that the rules were applied variably based on the family member, and that Kody required rigid adherence from Janelle's kids, but not from his own inner circle. The jury saw the hypocrisy. The rules weren't health-related. They were about control and favoritism. By the close of this session, Mindy had created a clear picture of the deliberate division within the household. The jury knew now that the emotional and financial manipulation outlined in previous sessions continued into the pandemic period. The Browns' public image of a responsible, caring family had been destroyed. What was left was a system which broke down to isolate, control, and favor certain individuals and marginalize others. Mindy's testimony linked the financial fraud to emotional and physical domination, revealing the jury a complete scheme of manipulation. Kody and Robyn were now no longer controlling money. They were controlling lives, modeling loyalty, and punishing disagreement, while maintaining a carefully managed facade on the outside. The final trial session brought the case to its dramatic end. With Mindy Jessup's testimony concluded, attention turned to the closing arguments, where the proof of financial dishonesty, emotional manipulation, and COVID-19 hypocrisy had been synthesized into one cohesive, irrefutable argument. Ms. Chararma, for Christine and Janelle, started by reiterating the financial evidence. She reminded the jurors that although the Browns had a self-image of struggling and being frugal, they were secretly carrying on a corporate account, KN&R Holdings, to channel funds for personal benefit. Mindy's own eye-opening experiences with enormous deposits, extravagant purchases, and purposeful transfers confirmed the intentional hiding of assets from Janelle and Christine. Each payment to the nanny, each luxury good purchased, and each bank statement added to a pattern of deceit that was calculated, cold, and ongoing. The argument shifted to emotional manipulation. Charama emphasized the strategy sessions between Kody and Robyn, where they consciously plotted to restrict access to the other wives and their children. Kody's burden of my crown language, combined with Robyn's guidance, was a deliberate campaign to control and segregate. The jury was reminded of the Co-19 policies and how selectively applied rules were just another instrument of power and favor. Access was determined by loyalty, and fear and compliance governed conduct. The defense attempted to present the case as nothing more than a domestic squabble, but the facts spoke otherwise. Mindy's narrative revealed a well-orchestrated scheme to get rich at the family's expense while dominating relationships and silencing dissent. It wasn't about money, it was manipulation, gaslighting, and psychological abuse, all captured by an insider who had nothing to lose other than the truth. When the jury came back, the verdict was rapid and unanimous. On every charge, breach of fiduciary duty, financial malfeasance, and intentional infliction of emotional distress, they found for Christine and Janelle. Financial damages consisted of repayment of investments, a percentage of KN&R Holdings funds, and earned interest, holding accountable the family money misused. The emotional damages granted acknowledged the decades of suffering caused to the plaintiffs, justifying the immense personal sacrifice of Kody and Robyn's actions. The courtroom dissolved into chaos. Kody's fury boiled over, and Robyn's mask of calm exploded. Christine, Janelle, and Mindy hugged, their unity a striking contrast to the chaos of the defendants. On the steps of the courthouse, the verdict read as a reckoning. The painstakingly created myth of the Brown family had disintegrated, and justice had been done. Mindy Jessup gained the courage to testify, and in so doing had exposed more than financial misconduct. It had uncovered a long-standing pattern of manipulation, hypocrisy, and abuse. The OG wives were vindicated, their testimonies confirmed, and the Brown family as it was known forever changed. From secrets and lies, truth had been produced, and with that, accountability and closure for all who had long been silenced. The aftermath of the verdict was as sensational as the trial. Kody and Robyn were stunned, their painstakingly maintained image of the family destroyed. Kody, the former patriarchal figure of authority, was lost, his standing publicly challenged. Robyn, whose own tears frequently elicited sympathy, was confronted now with the irrefutable fact that her involvement in financial and emotional manipulation had been revealed. Outside the courthouse, Christine and Janelle emerged as winners, not only in a courtroom, but as women who had gotten their voices back. Mindy Jessup, the soft-spoken nanny and insider, was instrumental in laying bare the extent of dishonesty. Her testimony attested to what fans had long believed, that the Browns' public image of harmony, sacrifice, and concern for all of the wives was a farce. The economic consequences were swift and severe. KN&R Holdings, the clandestine LLC utilized to divert funds, needed to be accounted for. Assets, such as Robyn's upscale Flagstaff residence and slices of untouched property on Coyote Pass, were up for reallocation to comply with the judgment. For the first time, the inequities between Kody and Robyn's lifestyle and those of the other wives were measured and penalized. But above dollars, the emotional vindication was deep. The jury categorically acknowledged the premeditated cruelty, manipulation, and deception perpetrated against Christine, Janelle, and their children. Decades of gaslighting, control, and isolation were validated in a court of law, giving not only monetary compensation, but moral justice. For the viewers and the fans, the narrative provided an unusual closure. The Brown family, erstwhile idolized and idealized, had been exposed. The narrative had moved from reality TV fantasy to a cautionary tale of power, secrecy, and responsibility in family relationships. Christine and Janelle had not come out as victims, but as strong women who had battled for truth, vindication, and justice, establishing that courage and determination could finally bring down deception and manipulation. The aftermath of the trial would stretch far beyond the courtroom walls. It was a day of reckoning for the Brown clan, an open slap in the face of control and deception, and a reminder of the potential of one courageous insider to tell the truth. The tale of Mindy Jessup, the $80,000 nanny who saw it all, would be etched in history as the turning point, the catalyst that exposed a hidden empire of deceit. Moments after the sentencing, the public response was swift and frenzied. Fans and critics alike deluged social media, analyzing every word of Mindy Jessup's testimony and the courtroom theatrics. The show that once had portrayed Kody as the committed patriarch and Robyn as the supporting sister wife was now thoroughly demolished. The audience could no longer disconnect the image on TV from what in fact had been revealed in court. Media channels followed up with the news, not only focusing on the financial fraud, but also the emotional manipulation the two women had endured for decades. Pundits argued the morality of the secret LLC, the unequal treatment of the wives, and the heartlessness behind the alleged CO-19 practices. Discussion moved beyond sheer reality television rumor to a debate regarding responsibility, entitlement, and family dynamics under inspection. At the same time, back in the Brown household, relations were coming to a head. Kody, divested of legal and moral power, was finding it hard to keep any hold on things at all. Robyn, subjected to public scorn and personal shame, had no easy way out. For the remaining wives, this ruling was liberation as well as vindication. They could at last rebuild their lives unfettered by deceit and make choices unclouded by manipulation. Mindy Jessup, whose bravery had sparked this unraveling, was a testament to the power of truth. Her willingness to criticize family members, understanding the personal and professional dangers, proved that a single voice could destroy decades of deception and silence. She had not only testified, she had altered the family's history, demonstrating the true human toll of greed and domination. When the Brown Empire broke apart, the case became something greater than a trial. It was a tale of revelation, justice, and responsibility. Christine and Janelle's triumph was a testament to the fact that manipulation can be defied, that silenced voices can find their volume, and that the truth, no matter how hidden, has the ability to topple even the most deeply rooted falsehoods. The moral was unmistakable. Wealth, power, and the perfect television image are nothing compared to honesty, bravery, and humankind's demand for justice. The world had watched a family front crack, and in its stead, a tale of strength, revelation, and irrefutable truth would prevail. Now that the courtroom circus had ended, eyes were focused on what came next. The financial and emotional impact of the decision were staggering. Christine and Janelle finally received legal acknowledgement of the years of manipulation and lies that they had to suffer through, and compensation that would enable them to regain control over their lives and their investments. The carefully constructed public image of the Brown family was broken, and the public was able to see the stark difference between the facade of the reality TV family and the domestic anarchy unveiled in court. Kody and Robyn not only had to deal with the legal repercussions, but also with the court of public opinion. The world saw through their facade: the secret nest egg, uneven application of CO-19 rules, financial manipulation, and emotional domination of their wives and children. Viewers of the show argued online endlessly, with many outraged and disappointed, others feeling empathy with the deceived wives. The tale had reached cultural phenomenon status, touching on themes of greed, manipulation, and the dangers of unbridled control within families. Meanwhile, dynamics at home changed radically. The children, once caught up in the middle of being manipulated, were now able to bond with their mothers free from interference. The imbalance of power which had enabled Kody and Robyn to call the shots was removed, replaced by an open and accountable system. Even Robyn's expertly woven frame of innocence and victimhood had fallen apart with questioning, faced with the need to confront a new reality she had not expected. The work of Mindy Jessup cannot be overemphasized. Not only did her testimony expose the truth, but it also encouraged other witnesses who had silently witnessed manipulation to speak out. She was an inspiration, showing that one insider with integrity could bring down years of deceit. Her actions made sure that the story of the Browns would no longer be shaped by spin or selective account. As the dust settled, there was a turning of attention to rebuilding and redefining what family in this situation looked like. The verdict was both a warning and a lesson. Secrete and manipulate may last for a while, but truth has a way of revealing itself, and justice, when pursued boldly, can win out. Christine, Janelle, and Mindy had transformed an instance of control and exploitation into one of empowerment, and the Brown family drama would never be seen the same way again.